Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. A new Social Security report is causing concern among millions of retirees. But the biggest story may not be the report itself, because while most Americans are focused on 2032 trust fund projections and future benefit concerns, another conversation is quietly happening in the background, and almost nobody is talking about it. Most seniors have heard about raising taxes. Most have heard about raising the retirement age. Some have even heard about reducing future benefits. But there is another proposal, one that could fundamentally change how some Americans think about Social Security. Supporters say it could help strengthen the program. Critics say it could completely change what Social Security was originally designed to be. And here's what makes this so important. Unlike some other proposals, this one doesn't affect everyone equally. Depending on your financial situation, it could affect some retirees far more than others. Today, we're going to break down why Social Security needs a solution, why the usual proposals keep running into problems, and the one fix that nobody seems comfortable discussing openly. If you're learning something new today, hit the like button and subscribe. Let's start with why this conversation is happening in the first place. Every year, Social Security trustees release a report showing the financial condition of the program. Most Americans never read it. Most only hear about it when headlines start appearing online. This year's report received attention because of one number, 2032. According to current projections, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund is expected to deplete its reserves around that time if no changes are made. Now, this is where many people get confused. Social Security would not disappear. Checks would not suddenly stop. Money would still come into the system through payroll taxes. But current projections suggest future revenue alone would not be enough to pay 100% of scheduled benefits. That's why lawmakers, economists, and policy groups continue discussing possible solutions. And that's what many retirees are trying to understand right now. Not whether Social Security disappears, but what changes might eventually be used to keep the system running. And that's where things become much more complicated, because the solutions people talk about publicly are not always the solutions people actually want. Whenever Social Security funding comes up, the same three ideas usually appear. Raise taxes, raise the retirement age, reduce future benefit growth. Let's start with taxes. Supporters say higher payroll taxes could bring more money into the system. Critics argue workers are already under pressure. Then there's the retirement age. Supporters say Americans live longer than previous generations. Critics point out that not everyone can continue working into their late 60s or 70s. Finally, there are discussions about slowing future benefit growth. Supporters say it reduces long-term costs. Critics say retirees already struggle with inflation, healthcare expenses, and rising living costs. And here's what most people don't realize. None of these solutions are especially popular. Every option creates winners and losers. Every option generates resistance. And that is exactly why another proposal continues showing up in policy discussions. A proposal many Americans have never heard of. Imagine telling workers they must pay more taxes. Many won't be happy. Imagine telling future retirees they must wait longer to receive full benefits. Many won't be happy. Imagine telling retirees their future benefit growth may slow. Many won't be happy. That's the challenge lawmakers face. Every solution solves one problem while creating another. And here's where things get interesting. Most Americans assume Social Security works the same way for everyone. You work, you pay taxes, you receive benefits. Simple. But some policymakers have started asking a different question. Should every retiree receive the same treatment if their financial situations are dramatically different? That question has led to one of the most controversial ideas in the entire Social Security debate. And unlike higher taxes or retirement age increases, this proposal changes the conversation completely. Before revealing it, let's look at why it keeps returning. Many experts believe future solutions may need to focus resources more carefully. The argument goes something like this. If Social Security faces long-term funding pressure, should limited resources be distributed exactly the same way to everyone? Or should some retirees receive more support than others? That question alone creates intense disagreement because Social Security has traditionally been viewed as an earned benefit. People work, people contribute, people qualify. Simple. But some policymakers believe future financial realities may require a different approach. And that leads directly to the proposal that many Americans never hear about until they start researching Social Security reform in detail. It's called means tests, and it may be one of the most controversial proposals in the entire debate. The idea is simple. Retirees with higher income, larger assets, or greater financial resources could potentially receive less than retirees with fewer resources. Supporters argue this helps direct money toward people who need it most. Critics argue it fundamentally changes Social Security because for decades Americans have paid into the system expecting benefits based primarily on earnings history, not based on how much money they have later in life. Imagine two neighbors. Both worked for 40 years. Both paid Social Security taxes. Both contributed to the system. But under a means-tested approach, one could potentially receive less because they accumulated more savings or investment income. For some Americans, that sounds reasonable. For others, it feels unfair. And that's why this proposal creates such strong reactions. Here's what most seniors don't realize. Means testing rarely receives the same attention as taxes or retirement age discussions. Yet, policy experts continue mentioning it whenever long-term Social Security solutions are discussed. Not because everyone supports it, but because it remains one of the few proposals that changes who receives benefits rather than simply changing taxes or retirement ages. And that is exactly why so many people are uncomfortable talking about it. Let's quickly recap. Social Security is not disappearing. Current retirees do not need to panic. But long-term funding challenges continue driving conversations about possible solutions. Most Americans already know about higher taxes, higher retirement ages, and slower benefit growth. But means testing remains one of the least discussed proposals in the entire debate. Whether it ever becomes reality is impossible to know. But understanding the conversation matters. Because the future of Social Security may depend not only on how much money enters the system, but also on how policymakers decide that money should be distributed. And the more informed retirees are today, the easier it becomes to understand tomorrow's headlines.